You'd be amazed at how many people don't realize that having a pension in retirement changes everything. So if you have a pension and someone's telling you that it's not enough, that you need to keep working, keep saving, keep stressing, what if they're completely wrong? What if you're actually sitting on something worth more than most people's entire life savings and nobody's bothering to tell you the truth? Well, today I'm showing you exactly why having a pension in retirement changes absolutely everything. So, hey, I'm Jason. I retired at 39, and no, unfortunately, I don't have a pension. However, I basically spent the last several years obsessing over this retirement stuff. And I find it crazy how many people are making this whole retirement thing way harder than it actually needs to be. Take my buddy Ken, for example. Ken's 56 with a pension. He worked as a state employee for nearly 30 years, and here's the thing. Everyone keeps telling him it's not enough. Like his brother, who doesn't even have a pension, somehow has way more money saved than him. His financial advisor won't stop bugging him about maxing out his 401k as if he's starting from scratch. And Ken's sitting here thinking that he needs to work extra years because, well, honestly, he's terrified he doesn't have enough to retire. But what if, and hear me out here, what if Ken's pension is actually worth way more than most people's entire retirement savings? Like, what if he's sitting on something really valuable and everyone, including him, is treating it like it's basically nothing? I'm telling you, Ken's pension changes everything about retirement. How much he actually needs to save, when he can finally walk away from work, how he should be investing, all of it. But here's the thing that bugs me. Nobody's teaching people with pensions how to think differently. So Ken's following the wrong playbook, and he's losing out on years of his life that he could be enjoying. And look, with Ken's situation, by the time we finish this video, you're going to understand exactly why he might be able to retire way earlier than he thinks, like years earlier, and why his investment strategy could be completely different from his buddies who don't have pensions. Plus, 3 big decisions that'll either set Ken up for life or, leave him kicking himself for a long time. Trust me on this. So make sure you stick around because I'm going to share the biggest decision that Ken's facing. It's a choice that he can only make once, and honestly, getting it wrong could cost him and his family hundreds of thousands of dollars. So let me tell you more about Ken. He's been working for the state for almost 30 years now, just grinding away, totally convinced that he's got to work until he's 65 because, that's what everyone does. So we're having lunch a few months back, and he's super stressed about not having enough in his 401k. So I asked him about his pension, and he just kind of shrugged it off, like, oh, it's only $3,600 a month. Only $3,600 a month? I mean, I had to stop him right there. Ken, do you realize you're sitting on something that's basically the equivalent to having $900,000 in the bank? He looked at me like I totally lost my mind. See, here's what Ken doesn't get. That pension, it's like creating what's known as an income floor. It's guaranteed money that's going to hit his account every single month for the rest of his life. Ken's pension plus Social Security probably going to be around $5,000 a month. His house will be paid off. His expenses, maybe $5,200 a month. He's basically already won the retirement game and he doesn't even realize it. Real quick, if you want more of this straight up retirement advice without all the fluff, make sure you subscribe to this channel. I just share what I've learned from retiring early and, well, spending way too much time thinking about this stuff. But here's where Ken's situation gets really interesting. He's still saving like he doesn't even have a pension. He's being super conservative with his investments, piling up cash like he still needs to build this absolutely massive nest egg. But if you think about it, if his pension already taking care of most of his basic needs, his investment portfolio can actually be completely different. And when we sat down and actually talked through Ken's numbers, we realized that his pension and Social Security were going to cover almost everything. So his portfolio, that could be for the fun stuff, like travel or helping his kids out, maybe that sports car he's always been talking about. So now Ken's looking at shifting to a more growth-focused approach. And why not? I mean, his pension is basically the bond part of his portfolio. It's predictable, it's guaranteed. That means he can actually afford to be more aggressive with his real investments. because he's not dependent on them to just, well, survive. But here's what really kept Ken up at night for months. What happens if he makes it to 60? Retires like he's planning to, and then something happens to him just a few years later. Like, what if he only gets 5 years of retirement before he's gone? See, Ken's dad died at 68 of a heart attack, completely unexpected. His dad worked until 66, grinding away at the factory, always saying he'd travel and do all these things someday. He got 2 years. 2 years. So as you can imagine, that scared the heck out of Ken. He'd be lying in bed at 2 a.m. thinking, what if I'm doing the exact same thing my dad did? What if I'm sacrificing years I actually have for years that I may not even get? See, this is the part that nobody talks about with retirement planning. It's not just math, it's mortality. It's facing the fact that you don't know how much time you've got left. And every year that Ken works past when he could retire is a year that he's trading away. Maybe he gets it back, maybe he doesn't. Ken told me that he brought this up during one of their late night conversations. She said something along the lines of, Ken, we've been talking about that trip to Italy since our honeymoon. We're not getting any younger. What if we wait until 65 and then by then one of us can't travel? And that hit different. Ken realized that his pension wasn't just about financial security. It was about buying back time. Time with Linda. Time with his grandkids while they still wanted to hang out with Grandpa. Time to do things while his body could still actually do them. And all the spreadsheets didn't capture that. You can't put a dollar value on watching your grandkids' baseball games on a Tuesday afternoon, or taking Linda to Italy while you can still both walk the cobblestone streets without your knees screaming at you. This is one of the biggest reasons why my wife and I travel as much as we do now. We know that by the time that we're in our 60s or 70s, we're likely not going to have the same health or desire to travel like we do now. And honestly, this is where the 4% rule kind of falls apart for Ken. You know that rule that everyone obsesses over, the whole you need 25 times your annual expenses saved up thing? Well, that assumes that you're pulling from your portfolio to cover everything. But if Ken's pension is already handling 60, 70, maybe even 80% of his expenses, why is he calculating like it doesn't even exist? Ken's got that pension giving him $3,600 a month, Social Security adding another $2,000, and he's freaking out because he only has $280,000 instead of the $1 million that some online calculator told him that he needed. But run the actual math, if his guaranteed income covers $5,600 a month and he only spends $5,200, he's got $400 surplus every single month without touching his savings at all. That's an extra $4,800 a year that could go towards travel, helping his kids, or just letting that $280,000 grow untouched for decades. Ken's not just fine, he's actually ahead of the game, and he doesn't even realize it. See, the traditional retirement calculators, they're not built for people like Ken. They're built for people who have to fund everything themselves. They're a completely different game, and trying to play by those rules when you've got a pension, Ken's just stressing himself out for no reason. This is the mindset shift that changes everything for Ken. I'm telling you, his pension isn't just monthly income. It's like insurance against market crashes. It's protection against that whole sequence of returns risk thing. It's the freedom to actually let his investments grow instead of hoarding everything. So let me ask you guys, and drop a comment and let me know. Do you have a pension like Ken? And if you do, have you actually calculated what it's worth in today's dollars? I'm really curious how many of you are sitting on way more wealth than you think. Alright, so here's where Ken's story gets really intense. The payout decision. And this is the one that'll haunt him forever if he gets it wrong. See, Ken's got 3 options with his pension. Single life payout, joint life payout, or he can take the lump sum. Single life gives him the biggest monthly check, that $3,600 a month that I mentioned. But when Ken dies, his wife gets nothing, 0. Joint life drops down to about $2,950, but then his wife keeps getting paid for her entire life too. So Ken's thinking, hey, I'll just take the bigger payout and invest the difference myself. And that sounds pretty smart, right? But here's what Ken hasn't really thought through. What if he gets sick? What if the market crashes right when he's retiring? Or what if, and let's be real here, what if he's just not disciplined enough to actually invest that extra money every month? I've been watching Ken go back and forth on this for months now, and his wife Linda is absolutely terrified that they'll pick the wrong option. And honestly, this isn't just about math. It's about sleep at night money, It's about knowing that if something happens to Ken, the person that he loves most isn't going to be struggling to pay his bills. So that lump sum option, that's a whole different beast right there. Ken would get all that money up front. In his case, something like $520,000. And that sounds amazing until you realize that Ken just traded a guaranteed income stream for basically, investment risk. Now he's on the hook for making that money last 30 years or whatever. And some people can handle that kind of pressure. But Ken, honestly, he's not sure that he can. And I'm not sure either. So here's what Ken figured out that completely changed his thinking. The pension survivor benefit isn't just about Linda's monthly expenses. It's about her not having to make a terrible financial decision when she's grieving his loss. I mean, think about it. Linda just lost Ken. She's emotional. She's overwhelmed. She's probably not thinking clearly. And that's exactly when predatory financial advisors, family members with bad advice, and panic-driven decisions show up. And Ken's seen that happen. But if that pension check just keeps showing up every month, automatically without Linda having to do anything, that's stability when everything else feels like chaos. She's not forced to immediately figure out investment withdrawals or panic sell stocks in a down market or make any huge irreversible choices in the first year. So Linda told Ken straight up, she said that she didn't want to have to become a financial expert overnight if something happened to him. She just wanted to grieve, spend time with her kids, and know that the bills were getting paid. So that joint survivor option would give her the peace of mind. And honestly, it's giving Ken peace of mind too. Sometimes protecting the people that you love is worth way more than optimizing every dollar on a spreadsheet. But here's where Ken's situation gets even more complicated. Inflation protection. Because here's the thing that Ken didn't realize about his specific pension. It comes with a cost of living adjustment. And that difference, that's absolutely massive over a 30-year retirement. Ken's state pension has a cost of living adjustment built in. Not a full inflation adjustment, but like 2% a year capped. That means that his $29.50 a month today will be closer to $5,000 a month in 20 years. That means his buying power stays somewhat protected. But Ken's been talking to other people whose pensions are completely frozen. So that same dollar amount forever. Their $3,000 a month today might only feel like $1,800 a month in purchasing power in 2 decades from now. This is why Ken had to dig into the details of his specific pension plan. Since he's got the cost of living adjustment built in, that's gold. He's way more protected than he even realized. And this actually changes his entire investment strategy because he doesn't need his portfolio to fight inflation as aggressively. Think about it this way. Ken's pension covers 70% of his expenses today. And with that cost of living adjustment, it'll still cover close to 70% in 15 years. That's not just good, that's incredible. His portfolio can truly be for the extras, the dreams, the legacy. Ken actually had to make this calculation when he was deciding between options. He could have taken the slightly higher payout with no cost of living adjustment, or the lower amount with the 2% adjustment. Long term, the cost of living adjustment option wins every single time, even though it hurts a little bit at the beginning. So I definitely think that Ken made the right call here. You know what else Ken discovered that completely changed his thinking? Healthcare. And this is huge for his situation. See, Ken's 56 now, and he's been planning to grind it out until he's 65 just for the health insurance. But when we actually looked at his benefits package, his pension comes with standardized healthcare starting at 60. That's 5 years earlier he can retire. 5 years. And Ken had no idea because he never really looked at the fine print. Healthcare costs are what terrify Ken about early retirement, right? But since his pension includes health coverage, that reduces the cost dramatically. That's another layer of security stacked on top of his guaranteed income. It's like Ken has multiple safety nets instead of just one. And suddenly retiring at 60 or even 58 doesn't seem so crazy anymore. It actually starts looking pretty doable for him. Ken was planning to keep working extra years just to be safe, missing out on time with Linda, missing his grandkids' games, always worried about money, even though he had more security than probably 90% of Americans. But not anymore. Here's what Ken finally decided. After months of going back and forth, losing sleep, stressing Linda out, running every possible scenario, he made his choice. Ken decided that he would take the joint life option with the cost of living adjustment. Yeah, it's $29.50 a month instead of $3,600. Yeah, it'll sting a little bit at first, but it meant that Linda would never have to worry. It meant that Ken could actually sleep at night knowing that he had protected the person that he loves the most. See, sometimes the optimal financial decision on paper isn't actually the optimal life decision. You know what I mean? And that's what Ken figured out. And here's the beautiful part about Ken's situation now. Once he finally realized what his pension was actually worth, everything changed for him. He started planning to retire at 60 instead of 65. That's 5 extra years of freedom just because he finally understood what he had sitting there. And that psychological shift has been huge for Ken. When he realized that his basic needs are covered by guaranteed income, he stopped making those fear-based money decisions. He can actually enjoy his money instead of just hoarding it forever. He can help his kids, travel with Linda, maybe get that car that he's always dreamed about. And here's something else that Ken hadn't even thought about. If his pension and Social Security are covering his needs, his investment portfolio basically becomes generational wealth. It's money that can just compound for decades without being touched. Money that can change his family's entire trajectory. I mean, really change it. Look, Ken's story isn't just about the money. It's really about freedom. Freedom from that constant anxiety that kept him awake at 2 a.m., staring at retirement calculators in his phone. Freedom to make choices based on what he actually wants instead of what he's afraid of. But only because Ken finally understood what he had and he made smart decisions with it. Don't be like Ken was, sitting on incredible security, but too scared to recognize it. If you have a pension, you may have already won the game that most people are so desperately trying to figure out how to play. The real question isn't whether Ken has enough, it's whether he's smart enough to recognize what he's got and brave enough to actually use it. And now, Ken finally gets it. Do you? If you want more no-nonsense retirement insights, watch this next. I'll see you in the next one.